Today, I am going to present the movie The Killer. It is essentially the story of a top-tier hitman who kills people for money. He is so skilled at his job that once he takes on a contract, no power on earth can save the target. Today, I will narrate the story of this movie to you in a very simple and organized way. So, without further delay, let's begin today's movie explanation. At the very beginning of the story, we see the breathtaking views of Paris. It is there that we first encounter our killer. He has set up his base by renting an office exactly opposite a hotel because his next target is scheduled to arrive there. For several days before the target's arrival, he meticulously observes every minute movement of the hotel. In the world of professional assassins, this killer is a name of terror, because to this day, no one whose contract he has taken has survived. He is extremely precise about his work and uncompromising in his planning. He follows his own strict rules to the letter. Perhaps it is this very discipline that has made him so capable and formidable. From morning to evening, he keeps a sharp eye on the hotel. Who is coming and who is going is all at his fingertips. Even when he goes out to eat, he remains extremely cautious so that no one can properly see his face or notice him. As soon as he finishes eating, he quickly returns to his hideout. In the silence of the night, he takes out his gun, cleans every part separately, and practices reassembling them perfectly. He always keeps himself ready for the target. One day, hearing a sudden sound at the door, he becomes alert and points his gun. But it turns out to be just a courier boy who drops a letter under the door and leaves. The killer calms down again. Next, we see a strange routine in his daily life. Even when he brushes his teeth, he remains incredibly conscious so that no DNA sample or fingerprint is left behind. After brushing, he wipes and cleans everything. He has a specific time for sleep and regularly monitors his pulse rate. He does not want to get panicked under any circumstances because he believes that losing his cool could ruin the job. After a brief sleep, when his eyes open in the middle of the night, he sees that his target has finally arrived at the hotel. Now the killer's real preparation begins. He quickly sets up his rifle and adjusts the table height so that there is no difficulty in taking the shot. He checks his pulse rate once more and puts on headphones to avoid being distracted by outside noise. He waits for the absolute perfect moment. There was also a girl in the room with the target who was repeatedly distracting the killer's focus. Suddenly, a perfect opportunity arises and the killer fires. But in a cruel twist of fate, at that exact moment, the girl moves in front of the target and the killer misses his mark. The entire hotel becomes alert in an instant. The killer realizes that the situation is spiraling out of control. With lightning speed, he packs all his equipment and begins erasing every trace so that no one can find him. He quickly leaves the scene on a moped and on his way discards parts of his weapon in different locations so that no one can reassemble them to gather evidence. Afterward, he reaches the airport and speaks with his handler. The handler informs him that this failure could bring great danger for them. Although the killer tries to assure him that he will finish the job at the next opportunity, the handler is not convinced at all. Ignoring all this, the killer boards a flight to the Dominican Republic. Inside the plane, the killer becomes suspicious of a passenger, thinking he might be another assassin sent to kill him. After landing at the airport, instead of going directly home, he checks into a hotel. He sets a trap at the door in such a way that he would know instantly if someone tried to enter. Holding a knife, he stays awake all night waiting. But as morning breaks, he realizes the man was not a killer at all. It was merely a figment of his paranoia. He then heads toward his secluded safe house. Upon arriving, he notices numerous footprints and cigarette butts in front of the gate. He realizes that someone had been there in his absence. Becoming alert, he enters the house through the back door with a gun in his hand and finds the place ransacked. Seeing bloodstains on the floor, he becomes deeply distressed because his girlfriend, whom he loved with all his heart, lived there. After a thorough search, he learns that she has been admitted to the hospital. He rushes to the hospital and meets Marcus, his girlfriend's brother. Marcus reveals that two unidentified individuals came looking for the killer and brutally tortured his sister. The girl fought back with great courage and even managed to wound one of them. When the killer enters his girlfriend's cabin and she regains consciousness, she tells him that the attackers were a man and a woman, and they put her through immense pain to find his whereabouts. Hearing this tragic story, the killer is consumed by the fire of revenge.
Seeing the heartbreaking scene at the hospital, the killer tells Marcus in a steady voice that they have nothing more to worry about. He is now going after those who did this, and they will never be able to harm anyone again. Afterward, he clears all the hospital bills and returns straight to his house. Once home, he begins digging a pit where he had previously hidden a large cache of firearms and fake ID cards from various countries. He knows that those he is about to hunt are extremely cunning and dangerous, so he needs sufficient lethal weapons to face them. The killer begins his investigation and discovers that the attackers arrived at his house that night in a green cab. He searches the entire city, finds the green cab company, and cleverly breaks into their office under the cover of night. There, he begins to meticulously examine the company's database to find out which specific driver had gone to his area on that day. After searching for a while, he finds the driver's name, Leo. The killer starts tracking Leo's movements. Eventually, finding the right opportunity, the killer gets into Leo's cab and tells him to drive out of the city. Midway, in a secluded spot, the killer points a gun at Leo and demands to know about the day a man and a woman took his cab. Terrified by the gun, Leo confesses that he picked them up from a private airport and took them to a private villa. When they returned after finishing their job, both were bloody and injured. Describing them, Leo says the woman had snow-white hair and the man was exceptionally tall and broad. The killer realizes that Leo is a weak-willed person. Just as he gave up all the information to him today, he could give up the killer's information to someone else tomorrow. Therefore, taking no risks, he kills Leo right then and there. Next, the killer heads toward his next target. After purchasing some necessary items, he stakes out in front of a large office building. There, he sees a woman named Dolores entering the office. A little later, when a courier boy enters, the killer disguises himself as a cleaner carrying a trash bag and follows him inside. He follows Dolores and reaches the cabin of a man named Hodges. The killer notices that when someone exits the room, the door remains open for only 15 seconds. As soon as the courier boy leaves, he takes that opportunity to slip inside and immediately points his gun at Dolores and Hodges. It is revealed here that Hodges is the very handler who used to provide the killer with all his assassination contracts. Seething with rage, the killer demands to know who dared to attack his girlfriend. Hodges coolly responds that since the killer missed his target, he had to pay the price. Without wasting another word, the killer pulls out a nail gun. He first destroys Hodges' laptop and then begins firing nails into Hodges' chest one after another. As Hodges writhes in agony, the killer tells him that he will call an ambulance if he reveals the client's name. However, Hodges passes away before he can say anything. Meanwhile, Dolores realizes that her death is inevitable. She pleads with the killer to make her death look like an accident so that her family can claim the insurance money. In exchange, she gives the killer the whereabouts of one of the attackers, nicknamed the Beast, who lives in Florida. The killer stuffs Hodges' body into a trash bag, puts it in the car, and takes Dolores to her house. After reaching the house, Dolores tries to escape, but fails. The killer leads her to the staircase and, with a sudden jerk, snaps her neck and throws her down, making it look like a simple household accident. Now, the killer's next destination is Florida, and he begins his preparations to hunt down his new prey, the Beast. Upon arriving in Florida, the killer wastes no time in locating the Beast. He observes that the Beast's house is constantly frequented by friends and that he owns an extremely fierce dog. The killer devises a meticulous plan, buying a large quantity of meat and sleeping pills from a store.
He mixes the pills into the meat so the dog will eat it and fall asleep, ensuring it won't interfere with his work. He follows the friends and waits outside a pub until they all eventually return to the beast's house. In the dead of night, when everything goes silent, the killer begins his operation. He first feeds the toxic meat to the dog to put it to sleep and enters the house with extreme caution. The beast was in the bathroom at the time, but he had already sensed that someone had entered the house. Mistaking the killer for a common burglar, he launches a sudden attack. The beast was a professional fighter and immensely strong. A horrific, bloody battle ensues. Both men severely wound each other, using whatever they can find as weapons. At one point, the beast manages to get a hold of a gun, but the killer cunningly distracts him, moves to another room, and seizes the opportunity to shoot the beast in the head, ensuring his death. At that exact moment, the dog wakes up and begins to chase the killer in a rage. The killer runs for his life, makes it outside, and locks the door behind him. To leave no evidence behind, he sets the entire house on fire. With the beast's chapter closed, his next target is a woman in New York known as the Expert. He quickly reaches New York, checks into a hotel, grooms himself, and begins his search. Eventually, he finds the Expert and starts tailing her. Despite having an opportunity at a traffic signal, the killer chooses not to kill her there. Instead, he follows her into a restaurant. There, he takes possession of the Expert's bag so she cannot use any hidden weapons. The moment the Expert sees the killer, she understands that the beast is dead and that it is now her turn. Since they are both in the same profession, they sit and discuss their work for a long time. The Expert tries to distract the killer with her words, but the killer remains steadfast. After walking out, the Expert requests to be killed in a secluded spot. While walking, she suddenly stumbles and falls, reaching out to the killer for help. But the cunning killer, instead of helping her up, shoots her directly in the head. In reality, this was a trap by the Expert. She had a knife hidden in her other hand to kill him the moment he reached out to help. However, the killer was already well acquainted with such tactics. After eliminating the Expert, the killer finds the trail of the main client who had ordered the entire assassination. That client is an influential billionaire based in Chicago. Upon arriving in Chicago, the killer begins to keep a close watch on him. He realizes that this man's security system is extremely tight, and entering his mansion will not be an easy task. The killer cleverly starts frequenting the same gym where the billionaire security guard goes and, seizing the right moment, manages to create a duplicate of his key. Now he is fully prepared to enter the billionaire's impenetrable fortress under the cover of night. Seeing a delivery boy exit the client's building, the killer takes the opportunity to slip inside. After a short while, he directly reaches the client's private chamber. As soon as the client sees him, he panics, assuming the killer is just a common thief. Trembling, he starts saying that there is nothing in his room worth stealing that would benefit the killer, neither jewelry nor cash. But when the killer remains standing as still and silent as a stone without uttering a word, the client instantly realizes exactly who is standing before him. Overcome with the fear of death, he begins to beg the killer for mercy. He claims that he had no direct hand in what happened to the killer. He had merely issued a contract to remove a business rival. However, once the mission failed, the situation began to spiral out of control. The client was terrified that his rival might find out who had tried to kill him. It was then that he spoke with Hodges, and Hodges began to blackmail him by preying on his fears. Hodges convinced him that to erase all information and evidence forever, he would have to pay a much larger sum of money. Under the pretext of erasing that evidence, Hodges had actually planned to eliminate the killer. The client insists that he was only trying to protect himself so that his name would never be exposed. After hearing the full story, the killer realizes that it was not the client, but Hodges who was truly responsible for the entire mess. He decides to spare the client's life, but before leaving, he issues a chilling warning.
In a grave voice, the killer says that reaching the client is not a difficult task for him at all. Although he is letting him go today, if the client ever tries to look into him again or sends anyone after him, the killer will return, and on that day, no one will be able to save the client. With this ultimate threat, the killer leaves the premises and returns to his secluded safe house. By then, his girlfriend has recovered and been discharged from the hospital. The two of them begin to spend their time together in peace once again, and thus this thrilling tale comes to an end. If you enjoyed the story of this movie, please like and share the video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.